Welcome to CompSci360, the ultimate virtual summit for MS and computer science in the UK. This two-day summit will give you a 360-degree view around everything related to MS and computer science in the UK, with subject knowledge experts and student mentors from top universities. Before we hear from the expert, we want to walk you through the CompSci community on the Nebula platform, a dedicated space for you to connect with other attendees and build lasting relationships with fellow computer science enthusiasts. Throughout this summit, you will interact with a number of subject knowledge experts, and if you wish to get a personalized one-on-one mentorship session or get your queries addressed, you can book a slot with them by visiting their Nebula profile. We believe that this session will enhance your learning experience and help you achieve your study abroad goals. Thank you for joining us today, and we hope you enjoy the summit.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the CompSci360 Virtual Summit, the biggest virtual study in UK summit for computer science aspirants. My name is Priyanka Cholera, and I am your Community Engagement Associate at Nebula. You can also call me a community buddy. Before we get into our session, I would like to give an introduction to Nebula and CompSci360. Nebula is a community based platform that helps study and work abroad aspirants connect with their mentors who can help them eliminate their fears of staying in an unknown land. Many highly accomplished scholars across the globe who push their boundaries have listed themselves as mentor on Nebula, and we have built a powerful community of these people. Now, CompSci 360 is a summit organized by Nebula to help students who aspire to study masters in computer science, right from the information on applications to accommodation. Our 2 day summit covers every aspect that you would need to know. Today, our mentor will share all the knowledge you need about dealing with landlords, your tenant rights, and you can ask him anything about accommodation in the UK. So before we begin with our session, I would like to introduce Sai. Sai here is studying at one of the top colleges in London for computer science, that is Imperial College of London. He is pursuing his master's in applied machine learning program, and he graduated from SSN College of Engineering in Chennai. He has also worked as graduate intern in the field of data science and cloud computing with quantumics AI. So now Sahil will share his own journey in his own words.
Hi everyone, I'm Sai Aakash. It's a pleasure to join you all in this summit, the CompSci 360. So I did my schooling in Chennai. I hail from the southern part of India, from the city of Chennai. I did my schooling in KV, Kendriya Vidyalaya, and I did my bachelor's in SSN College of Engineering. I majored in electronics and communication engineering, and I'm currently pursuing an MSc in applied machine learning at Imperial College London.
Thank you so much, Sai, for that introduction. And as we are discussing various topics today, we do not want to confuse you with what we are trying to achieve here. As this track is dedicated to accommodation, the first two speakers we had covered how to, find affordable accommodation. Another speaker help you choose which is a better accommodation. So Sai here today will help on how we can protect ourselves from frauds if your landlord is a foreigner. So how you can negotiate your deal better, and what are the few things that you should aware of when you move to UK. So without further ado, Sai, please tell us how are you managing accommodation in the UK right now?
Okay, so Imperial College is based in based in a place called South Kensington, which is in London. So I live like around at a distance of probably 1 mile from there, which is like around 1.5 kilometers, in a place called Chelsea. So we have had a 6 month tenancy agreement as of now, which dates from October to March. So right now we are not looking to continue with the same accommodation. We are trying to look for a new one, and that's because we want to cut down on our expenses, obviously. So we are looking for when you do your dissertation, there is no requirement for you to like visit your university on a daily basis. So we are looking for a much cheaper accommodation somewhere in some outer zones of London. So that's how it has been till now. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that answer, Sai. And I would like to, educate our audience on another point that when you talk to multiple mentors on the same topic, you get to know how everyone thinks differently. Because earlier, when we had Lata Shri talk on the same topic, she said that she chose a accommodation far away from Imperial College because that suited her best. And based on Sai's experience, he has chosen accommodation nearby college. So even though you talk to a lot of people, unless you hear every perspective, you won't know what is best for you. So, Sai, thank you so much for sharing that information with us. And I hope you find a really good place to stay very, very soon. So, Sai, can you tell us that how did you land your present place of accommodation? Like, how did you contact the landlord? Did you start looking for before you landed, in
Yeah.
UK? And like you said, you're sharing your flat. How did you find your present flatmates also?
Yeah, sure. So I'll begin with how I found my flatmates. So when you generally apply to these universities in UK, it almost automatically happens that people from the same country and probably the same city form a WhatsApp group generally. So people from India, like people who joined Imperial from India, had a group called Imperial India 2022. And then there are subgroups, say people who join from Bangalore, they have a separate group. People who join from Chennai, they have a separate group. People who join from Delhi, they have a separate group. So I got to meet these guys from the Imperial India 2022 group. They contacted me because it's a general courtesy to introduce yourselves when you join a group, right? So that's how you just connect. So these people, they texted me because one of them was from Chennai, and two others were from South India as well. One from Andhra, Vizag, and the other from Bangalore. So that's how we got connected with these people. And one guy also is doing an MSc in the same department as me. So that's how we got connected. So, and regarding the accommodation, we didn't move through any agents. We got to the accommodation on a site called Open Rent. Of course, we served through like almost so many other websites like the Student Room, Zoopla, Open Rent, so many other sites as well. But one advantage with Open Rent is that you can negotiate directly with the landlord. You don't have any agencies, any intermediate organizations to negotiate the agreement with your landlord. So we went through Open Rent. We found this property. It's a two-bedroom flat with two bathrooms as well. So we are four people here. And my personal advice is start searching for accommodation as soon as you get your admits, because uh, there's going to be a rush if you wait for the end, and a lot of people are going to look for accommodation, and it's probably going to take time, because there are a lot of intricacies when you ask a landlord about of their properties. You might not like something for some reason. You may have to reject several other properties, so for different reasons. So start searching as soon as you get your admits, because like get a group of people, or uh, if you want to live alone, you can always go for these studio apartments, studio flats, en suites. So yeah, start searching as soon as possible. That's the best thing you can do. And um, just be patient, because sometime you might like the property a lot, but you may not like the landlord, which is like the essence of the entire talk today. So there might be multiple reasons we
Yeah.
reject multiple properties. So um, start searching as soon as possible. And I just wish all of you all the best, so that you find a very good accommodation. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that answer, Sai. As insightful it was, that answer was quite entertaining. So, Sai, thank you for giving me a segue to the next question that I wanted to ask. Now, like people, I think across the board are, same in every nationality, every country. People are just people, and there
Yeah.
are good people, bad people. Like it's a
Yes.
mix of both of them,
Yeah.
right? So when you start looking for accommodation, it's sitting in your home in India. It's there is this paranoia that am I paying the right person, or
Hmm.
am I investing in the right property? And
Yeah.
when I spoke to other mentors, they the same advice echoed. Start early,
Yeah.
verify the person. So
Yes.
how did you verify the property, and how did you negotiate with the landlord? And can you just walk us through entire process in
Yeah.
detail?
Sure. So when we found the property through OpenRent, the first thing we did was to text him from WhatsApp, because all these websites, they give you some contact number, to be honest, and OpenRent gives you the direct contact of the landlord himself. So um, uh, the initial thing to verify as such the property really exists is to have a video where you can tour around the property, like the entire apartment, the gardens, stuff like that. So the first thing is to ask for a video, which I think the landlord, if he is genuine, should automatically send you those, since you're interested in the property. And the next thing to verify his identity, you can always ask him to send a copy of his passport, and that it's a right,
Right.
so
Oh,
you can
yes.
definitely do that. It's not anything rude, it's not anything bad, so you can definitely go on to just ask for his identity. You can ask for a copy of his
Right.
passport. So that is how we
Right.
verified the identity of the landlord. So yeah, and then there were several other things, I think. I'll leave it for the other questions as well. Yeah.
Sai, so if we break it down one by one, can you just also share us what are you also paying for, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
being immediate to Imperial College London, so that anyone who is also in the same area, if they have an estimate, okay, this is the market
Right.
value, so they are
Right.
not at least to buy whatever false quotes
Yeah,
these
yeah,
guys.
sure. So for us, everyone is paying 680 pounds per month. Like, so the rent of the house is around 2,850 pounds per month, and each of us are paying like around 67,500 in Indian rupees per month. So it's extremely costly here. Like, if you want to take up a place in central London, to be honest, we live in central London. That's, you can always hear the buzz. The roads are always gushing with sound. So that's one thing. But this was like the cheapest you can afford here, because if you go for any studio apartments and stuff, your monthly thing is going to like, you're going to end up with like spending 1 lakh just for your rent. So this is
Right.
like much cheaper, like in this area. I would say like it's around
Right.
68,000 in Indian rupees. So, and with
Right.
heating included. So heating is like, the
Okay.
heating will contribute to like the
Right.
major part of your bill. Like, electricity other than that is going to be nothing but your induction stove and lights. So that's
Right.
not going to be a very big amount, considerable amount for a month. You will, and when you are sharing among four, it's going to be a very very small amount. So the Wi-Fi and the electricity bills are not included, except heating. Heating was included in our rent. So because the bills for heating, they come from the council straight away, but this is not that way. This is not the case with the electricity and Wi-Fi. So we have to pay
Right.
the actual companies. So that was not included with the rent. So the rent included heating and the rent for the house. So that's around 68,000 per person per month. So yeah. So it's extremely costly if you are attempting to live in central London. So you have to keep that in mind if you are looking for properties. And of course, bigger properties will have greater rents. So if you are looking for a 3 BHK or a 4 BHK flat, probably with four people, then you have to pay a bit more, like around 200 pounds more,
Right.
more, I would
Right.
say, like 20,000 more in Indian rupees. So yeah, that's it. But the advantage is you are in central London and just 1 mile away from college. There is no need to take a bus or a tube. So that's also there. So it's just a trade-off that you have to make, like what Lata Shri said, whatever fits you the best, whatever aligns with your interest, that's best for you to do. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sai, for that answer. Because when you are moving abroad, there are several factors to take
Yes.
care of, and you might convince yourself in the head that okay, I can travel 1 hour every day. But when you're
Yeah.
having such an intensive course,
Yes.
where your energy is all gone just on studying
Yeah.
and doing assignments. I think traveling just adds an extra layer of exhaustion that you
Yes.
would feel. So
True.
it's each to its own. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
that's so true. So when we are talking about these landlords, I mean, we do talk about essential clauses in the contract, and it is
Right.
highly recommended that you do have a contract before you land, so
Yeah.
that there is a formal agreement with you and the prospective landlord. And
Yes.
couple of things that other mentors and I have also read up online that they need to pay for the heat, and
Yeah.
like you don't need to, but if it's included, the
Yeah.
cost cut down like you said. So what are the things that they should be aware of in the in the agreement?
Right.
So can you point out few clauses off your head if you know
Yeah.
right now, if
So,
you remember?
yeah, some of the important clauses in the agreement, which is favorable to the tenant. Like the agreement is in general predominantly favorable to the landlord. So we have to. There are only a few clauses that are favorable to the tenants as such. So um, some important clauses I would say are they are accountable for any damage that occurred prior to the tenancy. So if you enter the house on your
Right.
first day and you take up the accommodation and you find something is broken, it is the duty of the landlord to fix it. Like, and also, but there is a little caveat to that, because there's no necessary for them to replace the appliances. But of course, if there is a problem with your heater, or let's say if there is a problem with the um, direct supply of electricity, water, and gas, then they will have to replace it. And anything related with sanitation, let's say your sink is broken, then it's the duty of the landlord to like replace it appropriately. Yeah, so that is like one very very important clause. But our landlord, he was a good guy, because when we came here we found the washing machine repaired, but he replaced it with a new machine. So that just depends on the landlord. Like, he is a very good person, I would say. Because, and also even things from light bulbs to everything, he has kept spare in like a storeroom that we generally have here. So we can replace, like if one fuse is out. And in our case, we were lucky to get such a landlord, because yeah, it's been pretty smooth, and he has been replacing everything that was repaired, and for which we didn't cause the damage or the breakage. So it is their responsibility to replace these things. And also, um, one more thing is, he cannot and we cannot, like the landlord and the tenants cannot sublet the property, which means he has granted you a tenancy, he cannot add one more person to the tenancy without your information. So if he's trying to do that, you should definitely be complaining about it, either to the council or to the nearest police station, or whatever, for that matter. And that is one thing. And he cannot evacuate the tenants from the property without prior notice of some duration. I think it's 1 month or something in the UK. So he has to give you a notice of 1 month prior to when he wants you to end the tenancy. So he cannot come in abruptly and say get out. So that's not possible. Yeah. So if he is doing that, then that's also a violation of the law and the agreement. So he should not be doing that. And one more thing is the deposit that you give, like prior to your tenancy, just to like, what to say, like book your
Secure
apartment
your
kind
stay,
of. Yeah,
yeah.
secure
Yeah,
your
yeah.
stay. Yeah. So if you want to do that, then the deposit you pay has to be backed by a government scheme, because it has to be put in a bank, and it has to be shown that during the entire duration of the tenancy, this deposit has resided in a bank account. He cannot use the money for anything else. So make sure you have some information
Okay, that
about
I
this as
didn't
well.
know. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, he cannot be
Hmm.
using it just like that. Yeah, he has the
Right.
privilege to do that with the rent he gets, but that's not the case with the deposit, because the deposit has to be secure, and only on very regulatory basis it can be, you can be cut some amount from the deposit when you return the property to
Right.
him at the end of a tenancy. So also make sure that your deposit is properly stored and accounted for. So, yeah, so these are the very few clauses that favor the tenant in a tenancy agreement, and yeah, that's that.
Thank you so much, Sai, and especially for the last point, because
Yeah,
I think it's very rare that I've ever seen such a clause or such a law that you can't even spend the money that a student has given
given you.
to
Yeah,
secure the stay,
yeah,
right? And that is so important. I will make sure that I personally make a note of it, and all of you attending right now, later, such things you only learn either by burning your hand or if you're lucky.
lucky. Yeah,
I mean, there
exactly.
is no other way. Please do not go for the first option,
Yeah,
because everything is 100 times costlier there.
costlier. Yeah,
And if you're,
exactly.
and not only for Indian currency, for throughout the world,
Throughout.
like
Yeah.
for the developing nations, London
Yes.
is very costly. So
Yes.
please make sure that you don't spend on something that you can't even reimburse later,
Yes.
right? And Sai, there are a couple of other rights. So when I visited to check, what rights a tenant has. So UK government is very supportive of the student community
Yeah.
in London and UK, throughout the UK. So please, everyone listening to this right now, see, a 45-minute talk can only give you so much information. It's to give you a basic head start, but do research yourself. For example, there was this there, like when you go and see the property, do see if there's a fire alarm there, if there's a
Yeah.
smoke alarm,
Yeah.
if the heating machines are working, and and make sure that all the property that you see, you do click a picture of the condition of the property. So if
Property.
somebody ever tells you that you damaged this, or you have misused this, you can show it, because this was the condition I received it in.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to get into a lawsuit there, because I'm pretty sure, and I can tell you for sure, lawyers in London are very expensive
Yeah.
to hire. So yeah, you don't want to
Actually,
fall into
I
that.
just wanted to add a point on that. Generally, there are inventory listing services that do this. When you at the start of the
Right,
tenancy, they give an extensive account of everything that is present in the house, or your flat or your room, whatever.
right,
So be it utensils, the appliances, everything. Even every single scratch can be accounted for. Like if you see a scratch on the wall, then even that
right,
is accounted for in that inventory listing service. So it's like a huge booklet, like around 10 pages, that can list the entire inventory of the house. So I would like you to go for such a service. Of course, you have to pay for such a service, but the amount you pay to them, instead of losing out on your deposit at the end of the agreement, that would be a very huge amount. If you say, because if you don't have evidences, if you don't have proofs that this is how you received things, you can lose a whole lot of money from your deposit. So it's just fine to
right,
pay those 20 to 30 pounds for the inventory listing service, that they can come in, they can perform the entire listing thing, and you can call them again to do it at the end of the tenancy agreement. And the disparity
right,
between both the listings will be the amount you pay to your landlord, like from the deposit, because they'll say you have
right.
broken this much, probably you have broken a glass or
Exactly.
something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, if that happens, then you have to pay for it. Yeah, right. So use these
Right,
listing services and ask for the landlords if he can perform
right.
this inventory listing thing before moving in. So that's a very important thing, I would say. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sai. And that thought was not even part of the questions I had for you, but because you told me, like, they have to keep a security deposit, it just
Yeah.
made me feel like this is also something that they can potentially do to use
Do.
your security deposit.
Yes.
So please use the inventory services that Sai has mentioned. I mean, you should, every penny matters. So
Yes.
please make sure that you use all of that into account. And
Yeah.
Sai, I just wanted to know, when we are dealing with landlords, there are two areas that we usually have problems with landlords. One is negotiation of rent.
Yeah.
The other is some restrictions, or some damage repairs. I think damage repairs we have already covered. Do you
Yeah.
have any tips on negotiations and how you can negotiate your rent or something like that?
Okay, so the first thing about negotiating is that almost always it happens that the start date of the tenancy or the date they are expecting you to move in may not match with what you are looking for. Let's say you
Yeah,
want to generally the master's programs begin in September, like every
yeah,
year. So but some of the listings may say the tenancy starts from June. the house is vacant from June. So of course you won't be able to join from June, right? So you can try
Right.
negotiating the start date of the tenancy. That is one thing you have to do.
Right.
Like almost
Right.
always the rate is fixed, I would say, because it doesn't make sense to negotiate on the rent amount, because that has been listed in your say the site you are looking at. Because
Right.
if you want to look for a lower say what, if you want to look for a house with a lower rent, you can go to that category. It's not that you want to go for a greater like a superior accommodation and you ask him for a lower rent. That's not logical, right, in any sense. So it doesn't make sense generally to negotiate rent amount, but you can negotiate the start date of your tenancy, because
Right.
that's very important. You can say we'll be able to only
Right.
join from such so and so dates, and it won't be possible for us to take up. And in most cases, when you do that negotiating, the landlords will kind of try to trick you that there are three other
Right.
groups that are competing for the
Right.
same apartment. So please, if you are able to join by this date, we'll be able to allocate this property to you and stuff like that. So if you're not really fine, and if he's not really moving with the start dates, then probably you should look for another apartment, because it's not a very good thing. That's a sign of him tricking you into paying the deposit as soon as possible. So be wary of that, and try
Hmm.
to negotiate the start date. Just say like or say like, we can probably pay 1 week rent, if he 1 week rent ahead. Like if you are not able to reach on the so and so date, you can say, but we want to take up the agreement from a prior date. We'll pay the amount for that particular interval of time before us taking up the apartment. So you can say that. That's a small trade off, right?
Definitely.
Yeah. So that's one thing. And if you are planning to live with like 3 4 people or 5 people, right, it's the problem with 5 people. So if you're going to live with 5 or more people, then you have to also look into something called a HMO license, which is
Yeah, you
nothing
have to
but,
license it as a
yeah,
homestay. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I
like you
read
have
it
to
up. Yeah.
license it for
Yes.
housing for multiple occupancies. You have to get that
Right. Yeah.
license, which is called HMO.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So make sure that your property has that HMO license if you are going as a group of
If
five
yeah,
people.
yeah.
Yeah, for so we had that issue with us, because our landlord, he was not sure about for 4 people if he should get an HMO license from the council here, from the council of Chelsea and Kensington. So he was like asking us to pay half of the HMO license, because the HMO license, once you get, it's like valid for 5 years. And our initial tenancy agreement is going to be like for 6 months. Why should we pay for the HMO license which is valid for 5 years? So there were a few things, a few heated words going on here and there. But then finally he found out that for 4 people it's not necessary, but for 5 people you do. So check, if you're going as a group of 5, if your property has a HMO license. That's another important
Yeah.
thing to look at. And um, what else, you can ask for the energy and electrical certificates, which might have been assessed
Right.
priorly. You have to get that. Like that will give you like all the information, like everything, if it is certified, if it's working properly. So that will give you a good idea of the condition of the house and the electrical appliances you have in your house. So ask for the electrical performance certificates. It's called EPC. So you can get that. He sent us when we asked it by mail. So you can look into that if everything is fine. And yeah, these are a few things. You can negotiate the start dates. uh, we can try to negotiate the rent, but I mean, it's like of course almost always they'll be fixated on that. They won't be like reducing the rent or something. So
Right.
can negotiate with the start dates and stuff, or the date when you want to pay your deposit or the rent and stuff like that. You can also ask him for a rolling tenancy. Say like, you don't want to gamble
Right.
all your money on, say like, you don't want to pay 6 months rent upfront or 3 months rent upfront. So you can say, I will take, you have to make him trust that you will take the apartment for 6 months or a year, but you can pay the rent on a monthly basis. So the contract is renewed like every month. So in that case it will be easy, because If you find something is wrong with the apartment, you can just break out of the agreement after the first month. But if you pay your six
Right.
months rent upfront, then you'll be stuck with that house. So there is that problem. So
Right.
always ask him if you can have a rolling tenancy instead of a fixated time period tenancy. So that's one more thing you can negotiate. So these are the things you can negotiate with them, I would say.
That is that is extremely insightful, Sai. And I think apart from the course you're taking, I think you should definitely start consulting services on Advila on how people can rent apartments better, because I've never heard, like I've never been so invested on how like to rent apartments in UK. Like
Yeah,
the way you are, explaining the entire concept with such passion just shows that how much empathy you have for students who are going to come after you. So more
yeah,
power to you and the community that you're running there.
yes,
Also, Sai, like we discussed the potential threats that can happen, or what on the spot, like prevention of, those hazardous, whatever you like,
yeah,
you can do. But
yes.
what are the remedies? For example, you have been duped by your landlord, something bad has happened.
Yeah.
What is the remedy now? Is there a strong
Okay.
student community there? Are the police very responsive?
Okay, so the first thing you can do is like every college will have a student union. That will be the best place you can go to because, like you said, only fellow students can empathize with the situation you are handling right now. So they'll be able to give
Right,
much more better advice from they can put they can put themselves into your shoes and think of stuff, and then they can give you very appropriate guidances in order to do so. Please approach
right,
your student unions like our student union. Like I have not been like so much like too involved with them, but I know that they have different departments within the student union that can advise on these stuffs, like the legal stuff, where
right,
it can be
right,
related to your tenancy, it can be related to your university, it could be anything, but they have an entire team who can make
right,
these guidances to you. And apart from that, uh, if you find something is wrong, you can definitely go to the council office. Like every, if you are in London, you are under the 16 royal councils, so you can, based on the jurisdiction, you can go to the appropriate council office and you can complain about the property, saying this is what is happening, and they will definitely take an action.
right,
It's not like
right,
they will close their eyes upon an issue. That's not the case in UK because they definitely work on all these issues to sort it out, and they'll definitely do something to mitigate all these circumstances. So uh, and also uh, I think reaching the council office is like pretty sufficient because they can enforce the further actions because they can tell police what to do. But when we get in contact with the direct police and we may not be familiar with the rules and
local laws,
regularizations,
yeah,
the practices that they follow and stuff like that, maybe we should not just get stuck with some issue on that part. So it's almost always safe to approach the council office for that, so they can deal with
right,
almost all the issues and that comes under their jurisdiction. It could be regarding this, it could be any other thing. So um, approaching the council office is one thing, and you can of course you can look up on Google, like there are some forums where you can put up these issues and get potential solutions as well. So there is this ukcisa.org, that is the UK Council for International Student Affairs, that can help you about how to rent an
right,
accommodation like at the initial stage. Like, and it will also give you idea on how to deal with any of these problems that you might have after your after you take up your accommodation or something like that. There is also something
right,
called citizens advice, which can also guide you into these things. Like they have different threads for, say, for housing problems, or say for some other criminal offenses,
right,
stuff like that. So you can get into the accommodation thread, and you can see if you have any problem, or if someone else had the same problem and what did they do to get rid of that problem and how did they do it. So That is one more forum where you can get your questions answered. So these are some sources and some ways to uh, think of what you can do when there is a problem, like approaching the council office, looking up in some of the online forums for solutions and stuff like that. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sai. And apart from nominating you from India for like being the head of the student community in UK, there are some 2 cents that I would like to give to our
Yeah.
audience here. So, like, there are Imperial College of London, there is Queen Mary
Yeah.
University, there is Oxford. So, all of these colleges also have a legal cell, like, they also have legal courses. They
Yes.
have LLMs and they have
Yeah.
PhDs. Now, those law students also form a community there.
Yeah.
And they always have a free aid legal cell, and you can take my word for it, there is there. Maybe not in your college, approach those college students, approach any law student who is studying in UK, and as a fellow Indian, they will definitely help you.
Help.
There
Yeah.
are so many students on Nebula itself that you can connect with if you're studying law in UK. They will help you. So do not hesitate. Maybe approaching a lawyer, and all the law LLM students in UK are already lawyers in India. So you are in right hands if you are approaching them, and you don't have to follow their advice, but you would know what are your options for remedy, right? So this is
Yeah.
one thing that I would also like to suggest from my end, apart from everything that Sai has added. And as I only have him till 2:45 in India time, I really want to quickly glance to the chat box we have right now, even
Yeah.
though
Sure.
I can still talk 4 more hours about just rent agreements, and I would just listen like a student with my
Yeah.
notepad here. Questions from Shreya, that what are common red flags to look for signing a rental agreement, and what should tenants do if they encounter them? Just to before giving it to Sai, that he has answered most of the questions that you guys are asking. But still, I think just to summarize everything, I will list all the questions first, and then he can give one answer to all the questions that
Yeah.
are given here.
Yeah.
How to deal with disputes or conflicts with landlords? Do students face such challenges? If so, what are the options to resolve the situation? I think we just answered that. What are the actions? What actions can be taken if landlords deny to make the repairs required in the case of malfunction or amenities? What recourse do they have if these obligations are not met? How can tenants break a lease agreement early? What are the consequences of doing so? So you can take a breath and answer them like
Yeah.
one by one as you want it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, sure. So some common red flags are, I would say, the how they hasten you into the process, like saying there are two other groups competing for the same apartment, so pay your deposit as soon as you can, stuff like that, and not being honest about their identity and stuff. Because our landlord, when we asked him about his identity, he just sent his passport PDF. So you can see the promptness in their responses, right? Because if they are not very prompt with their responses, and if they hesitate to reply to some of the questions you put forth, then these are the very easy common red flags that you can detect. But at the end of the day, there's still they find ways to, there are ways to trick people. So but I would say common red flags are these: people who genuinely want to rent the apartment and do not want to get into any trouble will be like, they won't hasten you in any way. They'll be like, take your time and let me know. That will be their simple reply, because I have seen these genuine landlords as well, right? So these are this is a good green flag. So he's not hastening you the process, he's giving you time,
Right.
he's explaining everything to you. Like one of the guys also, like, that guy was great. I had a accommodation which was like very very close, like a street
Right.
adjacent to my university, and almost at the same amount. That was like a steal if that really happened. But that landlord, he
Right.
very honestly said that it's a ground floor apartment, you won't get a lot of sunlight, and there is a tube track behind one of the rooms, so tube lines, so you'll keep having these noises when
Yeah.
the tube thing runs. So he genuinely made these clarifications as well. He was like, if you want to still go forward with the apartment, you can definitely do so. So this is what this is how these are some characteristics. Like just now when they explain stuff, you can really see if they are genuine about this. So you
Right.
can, yeah, with their responses, you can definitely figure out if they are you can detect these red flags and what you call the green flags for that matter. Yeah.
Right.
So
Yeah, definitely, Sai. Thank you so much for the answer. I mean, the fact that it was on ground floor and London is so cold throughout the
cold.
year,
Yeah.
to not have sunlight can, it can land you into some mental health issues also, because sunlight is
Yeah.
very important for your
Important.
mental
Yes.
health.
Exactly.
So, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for all the answers. And
What is the
would you
next?
like to take some other questions, sir? The
Yeah. Yeah.
next
Yeah.
question
So
was, how can you solve the dispute if there's amenities are broken? Like you said, you can take it up to landlord, but what
yeah.
if it refuses to do so? What are the obligations they have?
Okay, so the best thing you have is your agreement. So if they are not repairing any
Right,
of these things, then he is violating the agreement. You can report it to the
right,
council, and the council will take immediate action on
right,
this. And they will
right,
be obliged to do this because the fines here are very hefty. So
right,
of course they'll try to mess with you, but they can't mess with the council. That's the point here.
right.
So the regulatory bodies
Okay.
are very strict around these things. So
Hmm.
if you can report it to the council will definitely launch a small investigation into this and probably request the landlord or at least enforce the landlord to perform these repairs. And if they don't, they have to pay a very very hefty fine. And so they will not
Right,
be they will not generally be trying willing to do that. So they'll be
right.
obliged to do the repairs. So yeah, hefty fines and prison sentences for a limited duration,
Should
I
do
would
the
say.
job.
Yeah, that should
Should
do
do
the
the
job.
job.
And I think that's essentially like that's how essentially laws work here. Like even a trivial offense can
Yeah,
have a very hefty fine and
right,
probably a prison sentence. So uh,
right,
reporting to your council with the proof, which is your tenancy agreement, is like the best option.
right.
You have your tenancy agreement in hand. That's the evidence, because that says he has to perform all the repairs. So if he's not doing that,
Hmm.
he's violating the law, right? So
Right.
he will be heavily fined, and you can be happy looking at that. So
So,
the last
yeah,
question, right?
thank you so much, Sai.
Yeah.
The last question was how to break how to end the tenancy agreement. But I would just like say from my end that it's the notice period is given in the
Yeah.
agreement only, so you
Yeah.
can just raise the same, and
Yeah.
as I can add to it.
Yeah, but there is one small thing. If you are an international student, these landlords ask for a person called your guarantor, right?
Right.
So these guarantors are people who can assure your stay in the particular accommodation.
Oh, okay,
So
okay.
if you don't have a guarantor who resides in the UK, they'll generally ask you to pay a few months rent upfront. So it'll be
Okay.
like when you join, you have to pay like 4 months rent upfront. Then you have to pay the subsequent month thing. So
Right.
if you want to break your agreement before this particular duration of 4 months, then you lose that rent, right? You have to be aware of that.
Right.
You have to be aware
Hmm.
of that. Or if you have a friend or a very trusted relative here when you move into UK,
Hmm.
so you can
Hmm.
probably put them as a guarantor if they think it's
Right.
not a problem to them. Like if they are willing to be your
Right.
guarantor
If
for
they're
that
willing to
matter,
take, yeah, yeah,
yeah, then
yeah.
you can obviously mention them as a guarantor,
Hmm.
and in that case you
Right.
need not pay the initial a huge amount
Hmm.
upfront. That's not needed. So in that case you can break the lease agreement, and because you're breaking the lease agreement, there will be a clause mentioning you will lose this much money from your just your caution deposit. So since you are paying your uh, rent on a monthly basis or something like that, so you won't lose the money which you have for your rent, but you might lose a small portion of your deposit, because of course you signed an agreement for say 12 months and you are now breaking the agreement. So there should be a fine for breaking the agreement, right? So we have to pay
Right.
some amount to break the agreement, and you can of course leave the accommodation and you can look for a new one probably. So if we break the
Right.
lease agreement early, there is a possibility that we lose money if we don't have a guarantor, or
Right.
we lose a small portion of money from our deposit. So you have to
Right.
be wary of that. That is exactly why I was talking to you about the rolling tenancy thing, because you won't
Right.
lose the
Right.
rent
Right.
amount in that sense, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So that will be an easy thing. So try to have these rolling agreements if possible. It would be a good way. And if you want to, if you find something is wrong with the accommodation and you want to break the agreement early, so that would be kind of useful. You won't lose a lot of money. So yeah,
Right.
that's how it can be done. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sai. I mean, thank you. Really, I mean, I personally didn't expect an engineering student to give such deep and good insights, and not just brushing the topic. You literally walked us through every clause, and I'm super grateful for it. And I am we have to like end this session here, as we have another
Yeah.
talk coming up
Sure.
right now.
Sure.
But please do connect with him on Nebula. He is the person to go to if you're moving to UK for work, for anything. I mean, you will need a home even if you're not a student, right?
Yeah.
So please do connect with him. And thank you so much again, Sai. I hope
Thank
to
you.
see you very soon for another Nebula talk or a
Sure.
panel discussion.
Sure.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Have a
Thank you.
great day.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it was a pleasure talking to you all in the summit and being a part of the summit. So I thank you all. I thank you, Nebula, for this opportunity, and
Thank you.
have a good day, Priyanka.
Thank you, Sai. Thank you.